Get your paychecks up to 2 days faster with Early Pay. True story. Welcome to Huntington.
That was not a technical glitch. That was proving we are not bots.
Right.
In this world of metaverse where everyone thinks that somebody's somebody else or is some kind of an AI creation, we are definitely not that.
No.
Welcome to another episode of This Week, The Week That Was. I'm Saeed Khan, your host, and we are joined by a fun bunch of real people, as you can tell. Starting off, new to the show, welcome, former executive director of the Michigan Republican Party and a senior advisor to the anti-Trump Lincoln Project, and co-host with former state Democratic Party chairman Mark Brewer's own podcast, A Republic If You Can Keep It, Jeff Timmer. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We have longtime guest on this show, attorney Mike Rataj. How you doing, Mike?
Saeed, nice to be here.
You're not selling that line, Mike. I got to tell you, you know. I mean, we should have a take. We should cut and take two, but that's all right. We've already got enough mistakes under our belt.
When are we going to start the revolution? That's what I want.
That reminds me of like the most tepid signature I ever got in a high school yearbook. Hi.
You don't understand. I live a miserable life. Okay, I got to deal with that every day. So.
Duly noted. From Deadline Detroit, we have columnist Nancy Derringer, and of course, we have editor-in-chief of Deadline Detroit, Allan Lengel.
Hello.
So let's jump into this week's drama, and I'm not talking about the really rather excellent NBA Final Series that the Golden State Warriors won in 6. I made the comment on Facebook. I said the rest of the United States said that the Warriors won. Here in Detroit, we said the Celtics lost. If you know, you know.
You got to root against Boston. I don't know. I tried rooting for Boston because Golden State has won so many times, but I just couldn't help it. I was rooting for Golden State.
Yeah, and I mean, and it was an exciting series. I have to be sure.
Yeah.
But of course, and thankfully, the NBA did not go ahead and interfere or create an obstruction with the other great coverage that was there, and that, of course, is the January 6th House Subcommittee hearings. I was actually really worried because on Monday they said that there was an NBA game, and I thought they were going to go prime time on the hearings, but fortunately they held it in the daytime. Lots of activity going on this week, both on Monday and Thursday. Allan.
I want to play a little video just to get a smile here.
January 6th. For many people, it was the day right-wing fanatics attacked America's democracy. For Trump supporters, it was a field trip where they got to meet their friends from the internet.
And they didn't even have to swipe right or left on that one. Out of all of the coverage that you saw, and I think that the word compelling is probably a little bit hackneyed, but still well deserved in this case. Jeff, what did you find to be the real highlights?
Well, I found I was very skeptical of the hearings because I've spent decades watching congressional hearings, and they are like watching paint dry. Typically, you know, members of Congress are awful at messaging, but these aren't. These have exceeded my wildest expectations of what they needed to be. They're tight. They're well messaged, and I think the most astounding thing that I don't think anybody, especially in Trump Republican orbit, anticipated was seeing themselves in their video clipped depositions. I think that that has sent shockwaves from my sources through Trump world. He's watching, he's seeing what all these people said, from his family to his closest aides, and he's not too happy about it. And they're shitting bricks about what he's seeing. And all of those who did those depositions, who have yet to appear on camera during these hearings, know it's coming. Their turn in the spotlight is coming, and their turn in Trump's spotlight of his ire is coming as well.
I think watching paint dry is a bit underrated. I mean, when you're watching paint dry, at least you can get high off the fumes. Allan.
I was going to say, I think that as a lot of the commentators were saying, I think Thursday made it clear Donald Trump knew what he was pushing for was illegal. And I think they're just really laying the foundation. I mean, Merrick Garland, I mean, it's really, people say, oh, it's politics if you go after Trump. It's politics if you don't do something and you don't do the right thing. I mean, as far as I see, there's no choice. And Merrick Garland's going to feel the pressure. And I hope that they're not only researching, but already doing a rough draft of what an indictment would look like.
Mike, I mean, these are being compared really to the Watergate hearings. And of course, the two big questions that were asked then were, what did Nixon know and when did he know it? Do you think that those things were answered yesterday or anytime this week?
Well, I think that what we've seen during the course of 3 hearings so far, I mean, how Merrick Garland could not start an investigation into Trump, and I'm hoping that he has one. But clearly, Trump has violated the law in about 10 different ways, and the guy should be indicted. Period. And I think that it would be a disservice to our country and the rule of law if Trump doesn't get indicted. So yes, I agree with Jeff. The hearings have exceeded my expectations. They're riveting, to be honest with you. So, yeah.
So Nancy, I mean, we saw the now demoted in her father's eyes, Ivanka Trump.
Sorry, she cracked.
I thought that was Cher. I thought that was Cher in the video in the videos.
Well, that's why I was talking about bots. I mean, it looked like a deep fake of Cher merged with Kim Kardashian.
She really did. She really did. And I will say once again, that is the look of a woman whose husband took the last Xanax out of the family medicine chest and didn't tell her. So, she really looked. She looked so weird. And I mean, I don't know. I noticed that some people had the camera kind of tight on their face, and some people, got more of a head and shoulders shot. She got the tight treatment, and she looked honestly like she was about to undergo some sort of exotic, water torture maybe. But anyway, what about Ivanka? What's your question?
Well, actually, the question was, moving beyond Ivanka, who did you find to be really compelling in this week's testimony?
Okay, I have to preface this by saying we're having some work done on our house this week, which means that I was occasionally interrupted and may still be interrupted today by the sound of very loud drilling. But the lawyer who got the walk-off line where he told Eastman the only thing he wanted to hear out of his mouth was orderly transition, and then he told him to get the best fucking criminal defense lawyer you can find because you're going to need it. He was my favorite. He had the right attitude. There's been some good commentary about this. There's one piece from the New York Times, I think it's Frank Bruni, who said, do not allow people to go through the reputation laundry. So we have to always keep in mind that a lot of these people who are emerging as heroes, including, Barr, Mike Pence. Oh my God, Mike Pence. I mean, I lived 20 years in Indiana when Mike Pence was there, so I have my own complicated feelings about him. But
did he ever blink in those 20 years that you were there?
That's a good question. Okay. Everybody talks about governor. They call him governor. Well, now they call him Vice President Pence. Before that, they called him Governor Pence, and then it was Congressman Pence. But I first became acquainted to him when he was talk radio host Pence. And that's, he's a lawyer. He had a law degree, but he didn't have much of a practice. He didn't make his reputation as a lawyer. He made it as a talk radio host on WIBC out of Indianapolis. But I mean, all these people who are emerging as the good guys, Liz Cheney even, it just shows you what we're really in the upside down right now. It's,
Can we talk
Cheney,
more?
I was going to say, Liz Cheney, I give her more credit than Pence. I mean, Pence just got pushed up to the very, very edge of the cliff before he finally said, no, I can't take another step or I'm going to die.
That's his nature.
I think Liz Cheney has put a lot more.
Alan. He should have did it a month before the day that he finally stood off the truck. If he would have done that, there wouldn't have been potentially an insurrection, at the Capitol.
Yeah. Pence is getting way too much credit for doing the right thing. And I don't think he did the right thing. Not doing the wrong thing does not equal doing the right thing. And nowhere in that testimony that anybody has given, anybody close to him, has anybody ever said Mike Pence pushed back on what you're telling me to do and asking me to do is illegal, it's wrong. And he never exposed it. He never put the brakes on this the way he could have. And so all he did, all the testimony points to, he was calling everybody he could think of to try to find a way to do what they were asking him to do, not, calling it out. He knew what it was, but he was still trying to find a way to accommodate it.
Well, we know that he asked Dan Quayle. He went to Dan Quayle and said, "Can I do this?" I mean, he even asked Dan Quayle, and he says, "Are you out of your fucking mind?" I mean, I'm sure Quayle didn't say it that way, but I mean, to paraphrase, I mean, to Jeff's point, I mean, he waited to the absolute last second. All he had to do was push back immediately, okay, when Trump started to put the squeeze on him. And we wouldn't have a January 6th committee.
And if he had any honor or character, he'd be testifying, not all the people around him.
Well, that's the other thing. He's been such a coward. I mean, even after, we saw those still photographs of him essentially, being hustled out through the loading dock, in fear of his life. And even after that, it took, how many months passed before he gave that speech to the Federalist Society where he said, President Trump was wrong.
And throw Barr in there too, Nancy. Throw Barr in there too.
Yeah, well, that's what I was saying.
Both sides of the fence too.
Right.
Okay.
So,
well, let's talk about this rehabilitation then. I mean, we've got people like Liz Cheney, Mike Pence, Bill Barr, who are somewhere short of being canonized. Is this a strategy that you find even on the Democratic side to kind of allow for the mainstream of the Republican Party to get some breathing space now because of the fact that the Looney Tunes really are running the show? What do you think?
What you see from the hearings is that you're seeing a lot of Republicans who are coming out and saying this guy's insane, and I think it does make the hearings more legitimate. That's all really that are testifying is are Republicans, and they're all coming out against Trump, and I think that is helping.
That's
let's
maybe a question.
Let's settle this though. You said the mainstream of the Republican Party is Donald Trump, and it is the MAGAs. It's not the Liz Cheneys. The Liz Cheneys and those testifying are the extreme fringe in the party now. Let's be real clear about that. We saw that in the primaries in South Carolina the other night, where the Congressman Rice voting for impeachment lost. Pete Meyer in Michigan is going to lose his primary because of his impeachment vote. That's why Fred Upton retired. They're not the mainstream of the party.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about that then. Let's read the primary tea leaves. I mean, we had Adam Laxalt win in Nevada, who's definitely a Trumpster. Somebody whose family name hasn't exactly evoked memories or alignment with people like Trump. And then we had what happened in South Carolina, where you had Mace win, although she's not fully an anti-MAGA by any stretch of the imagination. How is this looking? I mean, can we really then go ahead and use it as a predictor for the midterms?
Well, I definitely think so. I think that the Republicans, the national Republicans, have this fantasy, this delusion that they're living in, where they think that Glenn Youngkin in Virginia is the model. But in reality, they have Doug Mastrianos being nominated everywhere. They're not going to have Glenn Youngkins running for governor in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, in Wisconsin, in Arizona, in Nevada. They're going to have these, horse paste eating, urine drinking kooks who are the standard bearers for the Republican Party, and they win. They're going to win these battles, these nomination battles, these primary battles or convention battles. But they're going to likely lose the war. But I think the danger is dismissing these people as too crazy, too extreme, because they might win. They might win here in Michigan. They might win all across the country if the climate is the macro environment that they're running in is bad enough.
Well, I learned today that Adam Laxalt and Ron DeSantis were roommates in officers training. Just, I mean, you can't make this stuff up. These guys are just so intertwined with each other, which of course then, really brings about a very fascinating scenario. Here you got Laxalt running as a pro-Trumper, and DeSantis is almost certainly going to be running in 2024, not on a Trump ticket. In fact, really vying for the primary slot or the nomination over him. Is this going to take a while for people to choose? Because I think at a certain point they're going to have to choose whether they're going to be with Trump or whether they're going to disavow him by 24.
Whew.
Any thoughts? Or should I just come back to that in 2 years?
Well, no, I don't think there's any choice that needs to be made. If Trump runs, Trump wins. If Trump runs, DeSantis does not. DeSantis does not have the balls to take on Trump. Everything he's doing is to position himself if Trump doesn't run. No one with any sanity in the Republican, that's a relative term, within the Republican Party relative to other Republicans, is going to take on Trump, other than maybe a Don Quixote type run by Larry Hogan or somebody like that, the governor of Maryland, who won't have any chance to win the primary. If Trump runs, even if Trump is imprisoned or under indictment, Trump will win the nomination.
I wonder who his Sancho Panza is going to be. I always wonder who the sidekick is on that one. Nancy.
Dan Scavino is the Sancho Panza.
I don't have anything to add to this other than just to point out that DeSantis is so shameless in his Trump idolatry that he's even changing the way he talks, which is kind of embarrassing in a middle-aged man. He's starting to pronounce China the way Trump does. China, where he kind of gives it that weird thing in the back of the throat. So I don't know. I can't say anything other than I agree with Jeff. I think that's
but he went to Harvard.
And that is weird, though. You're talking about all these little, it all starts in the Ivies, I think. Tommy Lee Jones and Al Gore were roommates, at Harvard. I mean, it's just that's what going to an Ivy League school is all about, I guess.
Well, I mean, along with inventing the internet, yeah. I mean, Tommy Lee Jones or Al Gore also roomed with Tommy Lee Jones, who was in the movie Love Story, who I think Al Gore also claims was loosely based on his relationship with Tipper, except Tipper lived. So.
And now lives without Al.
Yeah.
Yes.
He talked about how, hey, Mike, you just made a crack of how did Ted Cruz get into Harvard? Do not underestimate Ted Cruz's IQ, if nothing else. I mean, that's the biggest mistake.
Nor his stupidity.
Well, or the lengths that he will go to get what he wants. He got into Harvard and then did he go to Harvard Law?
He was a Princeton undergrad, and then he went to Harvard Law School.
Harvard Law, that was it. He went to Harvard Law, and he was very picky about which study groups he would join as a member of as a 1L. It was just like, ugh. It sounds
Larry Tribe, who isn't one to really speak ill of students, said that he was a tool when he was his constitutional law student. So
just goes to show you, I started my career at Miller Canfield, and there was a ton of lawyers there that went to Harvard, and they were all dumb as bricks. Okay, and none of them would be good. None of them were good trial. I mean, well, they didn't want to be trial lawyers, but as lawyers, they were a bunch of fucking stiffs. So it doesn't. I mean, I've been in this business 33 years, and you could shove all those Ivy League degrees up your ass because most of them are useless. So,
whoa.
Well, I wonder if Ted wrote on his personal statement for Princeton, "My dad may have killed JFK."
Yeah, right. I mean, imagine a guy calling out your wife ugly and everything else, and the thing with Lee Harvey Oswald and the whole thing, and he still gets on his knees and does what to Trump. It just, I mean, is he really a man? I mean, really, I mean, he's a disgusting human being. And I wish he would stand in front of me because I'd knock his fucking teeth through the back of his fucking head. So,
Allan, this is where we need to cue up the scene of Kevin Bacon on all fours in Animal House getting spanked from behind and saying, "Thank you, may I have another?"
Thank you, sir.
I wish I had that in the queue.
I like to call Ted Cruz the leading contender to never, ever, ever be president of the United States.
You heard it here. Well, one thing that the insurrection and the coup attempt has shown us so far is that the executive branch and the legislative branch both seem to be complicit, at least parts of the legislative branch, with the minions that Trump has. I think some of the allegations would go to people like Matt Gaetz and Jim Jordan, and I wonder, Jeff, if they're sitting there really frightened right now. But now it seems as though we've got the judicial branch involved as well, with none other than the wife of a Supreme Court Justice, Ginny Thomas, who seems to have been very naughty with her emails, and a former clerk of her husband, Clarence Thomas, or none other than John Eastman, the coup memo architect. What does this bode for the Supreme Court now that the third branch of government has been implicated in this whole mess?
Well, yeah, I mean, the New York Times had the story about Eastman. I think it was the memo or whatever from Eastman saying that there's a big fight in the Supreme Court over whether they should hear the case, and it's clear where it's coming from. It's really, I mean, the Supreme Court is, I don't know how there needs to be a review of the Supreme Court, the way it's operating and what's going on. I just, if anything, just a study that comes out, just exposing the bullshit that court has become,
Well, John Roberts certainly seems to have lost control of the team.
Well, I mean, it falls on him.
Yeah,
he's
it
the
does.
chief judge. Okay,
And you know
it all
what?
falls on him.
He is another one of those. He is another one of those Harvard heads. The guy grew up in a wealthy neighborhood in Northwest Indiana. Then he went to a prep school, and then he went to an Ivy League school, and then he went to an Ivy League law school. And he's very much, Mr. Life of the Mind up here. He's not like you, Mike. He doesn't play hockey, needless to say. But
none of them served their country either.
I think a little hockey experience, a little throwing elbows, might have served him well as he tries to get this
look at
cankerous group under
look
control.
At that idiot Kavanaugh. Okay, he's of the same ilk.
Boof. Well, yeah, Boof was the same way. But it doesn't. You said, what does it bode for the court? Nothing good. Nothing good. I mean, this plus the Roe leak and everything else is showing us there are some serious. I mean, there's some serious problems in that.
Well, ever since Trump became president, the pillars of our government have started to crumble. Okay.
Yeah, you can say that.
Now the Supreme Court. Okay. I mean, the Supreme Court, which was, us lawyers, I mean, it was untouchable. You couldn't bastardize the Supreme Court. Now it's totally politicized. And Clarence Thomas wakes up every morning and looks in the mirror and says, "I hate the fact that I'm black." Okay. I mean, and we all know that he wasn't competent. Okay. He wasn't qualified to be on the Supreme Court when he was nominated, I mean, his whole, he was put out, he ran the EEOC. His job was to disband it, to get rid of it. That was his mission.
Right.
So I mean, the guy's he's disgusting. He makes me want to puke. We used to have a Supreme Court justice here in Michigan named Robert Young, who reminds me a lot of Clarence Thomas.
Yeah.
Oh,
so,
okay.
I would say, the one thing that Trump has done so well, and we see it in the Supreme Court, we see whatever, he took the three branches of government while he was in and reduced it to really 1.5 branches. I mean, the checks and balances from Congress were eliminated. The Senate let him do whatever, no matter what he did, it was never going to be a crime. It was never going to be worthy of being pushed out of office. He filled up the Supreme Court with these ideologues, clear ideologues who lied during the proceedings or hearings. And he's filled up the bench, with some really incompetent judges who just don't give a shit about the law. And so he really effectively, in one more term, would have reduced it to one branch of government.
There's still the prospect of another term looms ahead.
Yeah.
I don't think Ginny Thomas gets enough credit for being crazier than a shithouse rat. She's actually famous for being a survivor of a cult, for leaving a cult back in the early 80s. And she made her bones as a anti-cult crusader, kind of going around preaching about the evils and the dangers of cults. She's fallen off the wagon hard. She's back in a cult, and she has become one of the chief disciples of the cult, and there's no question about it.
Well, some of the emails that have already leaked that she was sending around after the election make that pretty clear. I mean, she was deep into this QAnon bullshit. I mean, she's talking about watermarked ballots, and there are going to be military tribunals held on barges, anchored off Guantanamo. I mean, it's just like if this is the wife of a Supreme Court justice, they're sharing pillow talk every night. I mean, God, but this country is in deep trouble.
Maybe they should make him on riverboats instead of barges. That way you can gamble at the same time. Why not have some fun? Let's make the Mississippi great again. Well, I mean, Jeff, I mean, there have been some. There's now a track record of Ginny being allegedly involved. I mean, Arizona trying to get them to overturn things. The phrase "a coup looking for a legal theory" is being bandied about in the media. Is she the chief architect of it? Or, I mean, how is this playing out?
Ginny Thomas?
No, I don't think she's the chief architect, but she's definitely at the center of the conspiracy. The chief architect resided in the Oval Office and those around him. That's what everything is pointing to and has pointed to for a long time. And these hearings are making absolutely stunningly clear. But she was a foot soldier in this, and one of the leading people, because who the hell was John Eastman to people? He's just a guy. He's just, a rando lawyer. But she at least had, I'm Clarence Thomas's wife. When she called up legislators in Arizona, that was an entree. That was a door opener. And so she at least had, she peddled on her name and relationship. She was peddling some really crazy shit, but she was peddling it to people who were already far down the rabbit hole, like Wendy Rogers and others in Arizona, who are insane. They're criminally insane. I mean, these people are dangerous. And Wendy Rogers is somebody who's going to end up, in a white Bronco or on a compound that's surrounded by the FBI at some point. And that was Ginny Thomas's best friend in Arizona. And so I don't think that Ginny Thomas is any mastermind, but she was definitely, they pointed her in a direction and she ran off, full speed ahead.
Yeah, she was communicating with Eastman too.
Yeah, she had access. She had access. She had Meadows' phone number. She had access at the highest levels. So.
Right.
But she never discussed it, Allan, any of this with her husband.
Well, I mean, that's only fair. He'd never discussed Roe v. Wade ever in 1991. Right. So that stands to reason.
Never had a conversation.
So one of the things that John Eastman had alluded to was, as Nancy said, this fight at the Supreme Court, that this was actually being discussed about the idea about whether the Supreme Court should intervene on the issue of decertification. It would be easy to go ahead and make the argument that the three Trump appointees were on that side, despite the fact that, of course, they should have recused themselves. But it seems as though they're pointing to Alito and Thomas really being the inference that we can draw, that these were the two who were really spearheading it, and maybe Roberts and the three liberals on the justice were trying as hard as they could to push back on it. Is that a fair assessment?
Alito and Thomas are the two worst. They don't care about the law. They are total ideologues. I mean, if you know it was 8-1 in the most obvious case of fairness, it would always be Clarence Thomas. If it's 7-2, it's always Thomas and Alito. They do not care. I mean, if I'm able to predict that every time I see the vote without even seeing who they are, there's something wrong with that court.
Right. Yeah, he's taken
or
Alito
or
has
you're the new
taken
Kreskin, Alan. So
Alito has taken Scalia's role as being like Clarence Thomas's wingman, and although Clarence was Scalia's wingman.
So basically, Nancy, what you're talking about is the Sith. There's always a mentor and an apprentice, and Scalia was the mentor, and Thomas was the apprentice. And now, of course, Thomas has taken over the role as the mentor.
All right. It's like, if there's one thing about being the only woman in a crowd of men having a discussion like this, first of all, it's the sports metaphors, and then it's the Star Wars metaphors. And I've seen 3 Star Wars movies. You know which 3 they are, and none of the others, so stop talking about the Sith.
I've never seen any of them.
Well, good for you. But you make a hockey metaphor, I'm sure.
Well, you know what? I will say this. When I was in the Marine Corps, when I was in boot camp, when just before we were getting ready to graduate, they took us, our drill instructors took us to a little theater at MCRD, which is the training depot in San Diego, to watch a Star Wars episode. And the movie was like fresh at that time. It was like, when it come out in 77, that's the year I graduated from high school. So this would have been about 1980. And that's the only Star Wars movie I ever saw. And that was 40 years ago. So
there you go. So
how do you comprehend the social cultural discourse? Because Star Wars has sort of attained a level that only the King James Bible and maybe, I don't know, Shakespeare has in impacting our language.
I told you I have seen 3. Okay, so I know the general framework of Star Wars. And because I'm on Twitter and social media, I pick up the little references to Kylo Ren and all these other, people that were not in the original 3. But so it's like speaking get by Spanish in a Mexican border town. It's like you may not be able to have a discussion about like the Mexican government or the devaluation of the peso, but you can certainly order the tacos. And so that's my level. It's good enough.
Yeah. Okay.
You got me beat.
Well. To your credit, there's no tacos in Star Wars land, so
no.
There you go.
What do they eat? I don't know. That's a good question.
They never really show.
Yeah.
I've never really seen people eating. It's just like nobody goes to the bathroom in the movies.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
You've got that as well. There's a certain symmetry.
Yeah.
So here in Michigan, of course, we have our own drama when it comes to the Republican Party. Some people who are loyal to Donald Trump still. Maybe even doubling down. And a new poll shows that Ryan Kelley, in the ashes that remain from the petition issue, is still the front runner, despite the fact that he was visited by the FBI and arrested for his alleged role of being one of the individuals storming the U.S. Capitol. Him claiming that he wasn't storming it, he was just directing people. But it seems as though he's now running on this, and it might have, wait for it, Nancy, like a Jedi. As he's struck down, it is making him even more powerful than before.
He's got first of all, he's gotten access more to Fox News. He was on Fox News the other night just saying how he's a victim. Like, that seems to be the theme here. You see what Chief Craig goes on Fox News and Fox 2 and says, I'm a victim. I don't know. Instead of saying, with Craig, I mean, first of all, Ryan Kelley, you see pictures of him. They show pictures of him like encouraging people to get in to the Capitol. He's got his cap on backwards, and he's been. Yeah, I mean, he's fully active in something beyond just a spectator.
And what cap was that, Allan?
Was it? I don't know if it was a MAGA cap.
No, it was a black baseball cap with a black on black stars and stripes.
I know what that is. That's the no quarter given flag, right? That's the one that says, if I take you prisoner, I'm going to kill you, right? Isn't that it?
That would be the one. That would be the one.
It is like if it's possible, it is 10 degrees crazier than the MAGA hats. I mean, it kind of it announces you as someone who has gone completely off the rails.
Well, those MAGA hats are cheap. They're cheap-looking hats, by the way.
Well, they're made in China.
Every baseball cap is cheap, especially those snapbacks. They're like ugly. Anyway, but if Kelley, we were talking before we started the show about Kelley, and I had been thinking that Tudor Dixon could pull this out. She has a couple of very important endorsements, and she has the DeVos money behind her. But Jeff, who has forgotten more about the Michigan Republican Party than I will ever know, points out that that Kelley could easily go all the way and get the nomination. And if that happens, oh my God, I can't even imagine what the fall is going to be like. It's just going to be, the ads write themselves. I heard the first time I heard the expression, "you are fortunate in your enemies." I think I was much younger, and it was applied to Bill Clinton. And they were talking about how with Newt Gingrich, the second most punchable man in America, running, opposition against Bill Clinton, that he was, fortunate as enemies because people hated him. And I think when, you can say the same thing for Gretchen Whitmer. Geez Louise.
Yeah, last Thursday morning began without Ryan Kelley even being in the equation. We had gone from 10 people running for the Republican nomination, 10 people who nobody knew or gave a shit about. We had narrowed the field to 5 candidates who nobody knew or gave a shit about. And Ryan Kelley wasn't even in the discussion among those 5 people.
Right.
Now he's the front runner. And until somebody shows some chops to beat him, I think he has the inside track. He has lapped or has position on Garrett Soldano to be the craziest guy in the primary, and that is tantamount right now to being the front runner in the nomination. But he is now the front runner for the Trump endorsement if Trump gets involved in this race, and if Trump endorses somebody, they will be the nominee of the Republican Party.
I don't think he's going to endorse anybody, because I think he looks at that crazy lot and says, "I don't want to be a loser against Whitmer. I hate her. I'm gonna definitely lose, and I don't want to put myself out for that."
But you also have the goad of him being able to say "fuck you" to Betsy DeVos, who deserted him in the last days of his presidency. She resigned after January 6th. Yeah, and Tudor Dixon is hot and probably reminds him of his daughter, and so that's like, she's brunette Ivanka. That's what I've been calling her.
Now that Ivanka has dropped so low in his esteem, he's shopping around, I think.
Yeah.
But how much of this, Jeff? Go ahead.
I was going to say, in the Target Insight poll by Ed Sarpolis, Kelley, right after all the 5 other candidates were disqualified, Kelley came in first. But what Ed had said was that nobody really knew who he was, but they recognized the name Kelley, and they just thought, "Yeah, I recognize that name." So
I voted for
somebody. That's changed significantly. The poll that was out yesterday in the Free Press that Ethic did shows that he's clearly the front runner in name identification, but he's also now in the last week moved up high in perception. 40% of Republican primary voters have a favorable impression of him, and the rest of them don't even register in double digits when it comes to impressions. So in the week, he's attached some meat to the bones of the name identification. And when you look, I agree with Nancy that when you look on paper, Tudor Dixon has all the elements in place. She's got the money backing. The DeVosses can fund a super PAC if they choose to. She's got the right to life and the Michigan Chamber endorsement. But ballots go out next week. People start voting, and she is behind my pants when in a poll right now. And so she's got to make a move here at some point, and it's got to be yesterday. And so that's what I'm waiting for, is for her to actually start running a real public campaign, as opposed to this. I get a couple of press releases and articles in the news and Free Press, and I'm on Twitter now, but that's not a real campaign.
Well, 61% of Republicans polled believe that the election was stolen. And this is after these hearings have gone away. Notwithstanding the fact that Fox wasn't covering them, at least they didn't cover the first one. Begrudgingly, I think they changed their mind and are now covering it, albeit with a lot of editorial content as well. But here in Michigan, we've got a Republican Party that is dominated by the Weisers and by Michon. They seem to be perfectly willing to play the numbers and cater or pander to this base that, as you said, now represents the mainstream, Jeff.
Yeah. Well, Ron Weiser does not run the Republican Party or represent the mainstream of the Republican Party. Michon Maddock is running the show there. She's wagging the dog, and the fact that Ryan Kelley was arrested and now is the arguable front runner for the nomination, I think is reflective of the type of leadership that really runs the Republican Party today. It is not. It would have a year ago, you would have thought that being arrested by the FBI was a disqualifier or would hurt your campaign, not catapulted into the stratosphere. And I think that Michon Maddock is running the party. She's also under federal investigation and a central figure in these January 6 hearings that will be revealed here as it comes out. The fake electors conspiracy. It took people like her and her seditious husband, who were also there on January 6th in Washington, to orchestrate those kinds of things. And when Doug Mastriano, who was there on January 6th, wins the Pennsylvania primary for governor because of Trump's endorsement, I don't think Trump looks at these people and says, oh, they're too crazy, I'm not going to get involved. I think he's drawn to crazy like flies to shit.
Well, I mean, we have another example of that here in Michigan in Berry County with Sheriff Darleaf, who is suing, among others, the Attorney General, the Secretary of State, the Michigan State Police, all over an election fraud investigation, claiming that these entities have disrupted or obstructed his ability to investigate possible voter fraud or some other kind of misfeasance.
See, I am so looking forward to whatever Dana Nessel is able to turn up in this post-election shenanigans. The idea that we still have an unknown number of machines, tabulators and voting machines that have been confiscated and disassembled and messed with, and God knows what. I mean, they're going to have to be replaced. You can't put those back in service, at least not without some sort of fundamental rebuild. It's going to be expensive. I really want to know what these people have been doing under the guise of, their election integrity, push. So it's this is another popcorn investigation that I really hope it comes. I hope she can show us at least some results of it before the primary in August.
Mike, do you think there's going to be any kind of criminal investigation of Michon Maddock and some of these others who were involved in both D.C. and here in Michigan?
We can only hope so, Saeed. That's the simple answer.
Feds have confirmed. I mean, they are the fraudulent electors in Michigan and the other states are under active federal investigation right now. The Attorney General's office was involved in that investigation initially. They have stepped aside at the request of the feds, and there's an active investigation going on.
Yeah.
Well, here's a bit of a doomy scenario. Let's say, for the sake of argument, that the Republicans take the House in November and the Senate. There's every likelihood they're going to go ahead and just stop all of these investigations, isn't there?
They're going to start some new ones, though.
Sure. Yeah, they'll start those.
They're going to start the Dr. Fauci hearings. I think Rand Paul is just itching to get his claws on Dr. Fauci. Referred to by none other than moron editorial cartoonist Henry Payne of the Detroit News as a quack. The guy's 80-some years old and has had this distinguished medical career, but, Henry calls him a quack. And then I believe they're also going to, in the House, they're going to start the Hunter Biden laptop saga. So, yeah, they're going to stop all this stuff. That's why it had to happen. I mean, this January 6th stuff had to come out now, despite what Nolan Finley would have you say. Oh, this is all about trying to prop up the Democrats' fading chances in the midterms. It's like, no, because if we don't know now, we're never going to know, because this is going to be the first thing they do.
You know what?
Where can I find Finley? Where can I find him? I would, I remember when I've run into him on walking down the street a couple of times. I had to walk to the other side of the street because I just like to grab him and just smash his fucking head into the sidewalk. Okay?
Mr. Clean Marine down here.
Can somebody Uber eat a Cliff Bar over to Mike? I think the blood sugar's dropping.
I can't stand that son of a bitch.
You loved those Pugil sticks when you were at Camp Pendleton.
He's just a punk.
Yeah. He's not that bad, but he's a
punk. He's a first-class, second-rate punk.
So I was going to say something about, it's interesting. Some of the people say, we don't care about the hearing. Why, we care about gas prices. We care about this. We care about, inflation. And it's like, hey, we care about democracy too.
Yeah, none of that shit matters if we don't have a country, okay?
Right.
Yeah. Inflation and all this other stuff doesn't matter if we don't have a democracy anymore. Right. So it's the stupidest argument I've heard so far.
Right. And people, it's like, hey, forget about the kids who were killed in Texas. We care about gasoline prices. It's
right. Well, that's what that idiot Kevin McCarthy was spewing out of his sewer the other day. Yeah. We should be talking about inflation. Well, if we don't have a country, you dumbass, okay, who cares?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting what, the attraction to fascism really around the world, how it comes and goes, and what the attraction is, that you would think like, what we're seeing is just fascism and fascism exposed. And yet there's an attraction there. And I try to figure out what that attraction is. And if it's orderliness, if it's a sign of strength, that people just want that. And now, now we have, there's a lot of chaos in the world right now. We're having, with our economy, with the war in Ukraine, there's just a lot with the pandemic still never ending.
Can I make a point?
Yep.
It can all be seen in Trump's catchphrase. And the key word is "Make America Great Again." Okay, it's the again part that they're all sticking with, because it's a crazy world right now. But people think that somehow we can roll the clock back, we can shove the queers back in the closet, we can, make transgenderism, some weird exotic thing.
We need two separate water fountains too. Don't forget. I mean, we need.
Well, right. I mean,
we need two separate water fountains, two different kinds of bathrooms. Right. That's what it means. Okay?
I have a very pessimistic friend in Chicago who said, think what's going to happen when, if this Ukrainian war continues and, Putin is able to cause food shortages, the poorest countries are going to be hit the hardest, which is going to lead to more refugees, which is going to lead to more people, freaking out because, suddenly all these, poor people who don't speak the language are pouring into their countries in Europe or, wherever. And it's just going to get worse. And so, that's, I think, the allure of fascism. I mean, if you've ever been in therapy, at some point when you're talking to your therapist, you'll say, just tell me what I'm supposed to do, right? And your therapist will say, I can't do that. You have to reach that conclusion yourself. The appeal of fascism is, I'm going to tell you what to do. I'm going to tie you to the bed. And you are under my command, and you're going to love it. So it's
the paradox, because its allure is structure, but it actually creates more chaos, particularly for those who aren't part of the dominant group within that society. So
you are.
That's pretty bad. Well, you were mentioning about refugees. The British are trying to ship out their asylum seekers to Rwanda. Ironically,
Rwanda. That's great. Yeah.
Well, the Home Secretary of Britain is a woman by the name of Priti Patel, who is an Indian immigrant, and yet she is full throttle looking to be xenophobic and getting rid of people. to the point where Trevor Noah even then mocked this idea of being African himself from South Africa, that apparently this is a punishment, to the point that the Rwandan government now is clapping back on Trevor Noah and others, saying, it ain't that bad here. So maybe that chaos that Allan was talking about is particularly real.
What language do they speak in Rwanda?
English.
Is that their official language? But they have tribal languages too.
I think yes.
Yeah. Okay. I don't like that idea that Africa is just one amorphous place that, all Black people, will be comfortable in. That's not the case.
But I think to the point you're making, Nancy, the one language that they don't speak there is Kurdish, where there's a lot of Kurdish refugees that are being shipped over there. So
right.
Yeah, that might be a bit of a gap in the whole thing. So you mentioned Dana Nessel. The Oxford School Board. Let's go ahead and revisit the situation there with the Crumbleys. The Oxford School Board has rejected Attorney General Nessel's third offer for a shooting review. Do they have something to hide? Are they just not wanting a Republican AG to be doing this?
Democratic AG.
You mean
Democratic?
I just wonder why she has to ask permission. It would seem as the top law enforcement person in the state, why she would even have to ask them. She'd just say, there was a criminal act, a massive criminal act. Why should the attorney general have to ask, and they have the option of rejecting? I just don't understand that.
Mike, is it just a big CYA? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I agree with Allan. I mean, she could walk in there and she could subpoena witnesses and use the powers of her office to conduct an investigation. I don't think she needs permission. But certainly the school board is acting like they have something to hide. They hired their own law firm, which is going to cost the people out there millions of dollars, where the state could come in and conduct their own investigation for free. So I'm not sure what's going on there.
Well, the school board in the schools definitely were negligent. I mean, they sat, the Crumbleys with the sons sat in the principal's office that day with the gun in the room, and they sent them back, saying, here's the pictures of you saying, I'm going to go shoot people. And then they sent them back into the school. I mean, there's clear negligence here, whether it was a failure. What Nessel is doing is looking to work with the school board to look at their procedures, their policies, and where it failed in a way to improve and to help other school districts put security measures in place to better practices. She's not looking to do a criminal investigation. That's being handled by the Oakland County prosecutor at this point. Right. It would seem like any school district, all school districts would want to use this as a horrific a learning tool so that it doesn't happen in their school districts. It's certainly not as simplistic as harden the schools and have one door. There's a whole lot of things that they need to look at, and that's what the Attorney General is trying to do, but the Oakland or the Oxford schools are resistant to, because they are in cover your ass mode full time. And
it is not playing well there. I mean, I know families who are really affected by this there, and it is just a continuing trauma. And to find that the school board doesn't appear to be receptive or empathetic because they're just sort of covering their own keisters is really having an impact on the morale of that community. So, stay tuned.
It's really a shame. And I agree with Jeff. I mean, I said it publicly to Free Press when the preliminary exams of the parents were going on, and I said, what about the parent, or what about the school? I mean, all they had to do was open up the kid's backpack, and they would have found the gun. Real simple, But they sent them back into the classroom, which is about as and all hell broke loose from there. So,
but I was
they're in CYA mode, no question.
To Jeff's point about them trying to work with the school board, but at some point, look, it's about public safety. I'm just still, I think she has some authority, whether they want to cooperate or not. If she has to subpoena or whatever, she has the authority to go in there and say, I want to review all this stuff. It's about, she's got such latitude. I'm not sure why why she's acquiescing to the
the biggest weapon she has is she's got the subpoena power, so she could just start subpoenaing people.
Right.
I mean, they can use the investigative subpoena process and the story. So I'm not sure what's going on there.
Well, stay tuned. Allan, I think it's that time of the show.
Right, and because I'm dealing with schmucks all my life, I know who schmuck is, and I know the difference between a real schmuck, a plain schmuck, and just a plain regular schmuck.
It sounds like the different varieties of iPhones. iPhone Pro, iPhone Mini. Yes, different kinds of schmucks.
They're all schmucks.
They're all schmucks. Okay, schmuck of the week, Mike. I know, should I get back to you? Because I don't think you hate anybody this week.
I hate everybody.
Well, can you highlight one?
I mean, look, I mean, to me, I mean, there's a million of them out there, but I guess front and center right now to me is Mike Pence. Okay, I mean, the guy, is there. Everyone's saying that he was a profile in courage and all this stuff. What, following the law? That's about the lowest bar you could possibly set, okay? And all he had to do was stand up to Trump a month, right after the election, and said, "I'm not doing this shit," and stated it publicly, okay? And I don't think we would have saw what we saw on January 6th. Now, that's a little bit of speculation, but clearly he waited until the absolute last second. While they had the gallows out there waiting to put his neck into the rope before he actually showed some balls. So Mike Pence all the way live.
I agree. I mean, and by not speaking out sooner, there was an expectation created by so many of Trump's followers that he might just come through. And on that day, Trump finally tweets, "Oh my God, Mike Pence has let us down,"
Right.
I mean, he might be a little bit deluded to think that he's the odds-on anti-Trump candidate in the Republican Party, isn't he?
I mean,
I'll leave that to Jeff. He's the expert.
Hillary Clinton has a better chance of being nominated by the Republicans than Mike Pence does at this point. But he is completely unaware of that. He lacks self-awareness more than any human on earth right now, I think.
Yeah.
There's a 0.03% chance, Jeff, that she's listening, and that's all the motivation and inspiration she needed to run. So thank you so damn much for that.
Jeff, no, Jeff.
Can we edit that out? No, it's live. Damn. Nancy.
Enough of Hillary, for God's sake.
Okay. I have, as usual, there's a list, but I am going to go with, and a pretty obvious one, I'm going to go with John Eastman. And I see I have one of our comments.
Yes, and I think Michael Papa's joining us said Eastman, but I think he means Linda Eastman because he wasn't a fan of Paul McCartney and Wings.
She broke up the Beatles. Anyway, no, it would be, I'm going with John Eastman. And first of all, can I just make one little aside here, which is that how is it possible that John Eastman, who looks old as hell, was a clerk for Clarence Thomas, who's also old as hell? I mean, I would think they were approximately the same age. And Clarence Thomas was at least middle-aged when he was nominated to the Supreme Court, but never mind that.
He was 47, and that was in 1991. Wow. So
Okay.
even if Eastman was, say, 25 years old or so in law school, that means that he's in his 50s? Damn, he looks old.
He looks really old.
I'm 63 years old. I thought he was 10 years older than me.
Okay. So I'm going to, and I have to add, the reason that I'm naming him the reason that he rises above all the other schmuck candidates this week is because of his line where which we learned yesterday, which was after the guy whose name I can't remember.
Eric Hirschman.
Eric Hirschman told him to get the best criminal defense lawyer he could find because he was going to fucking need it. His next move was to email Rudy Giuliani and ask to be added to the pardons list. So that's kind of like that's really the threshold for me this week.
You really wonder what these people learned in law school too. That's the one thing I can't get my arms around, to be honest with you. But
well, these are ideologues. They're not interested in the law. They're interested in putting forth an ideology.
They'd know more if they watched Schoolhouse Rock hungover than what apparently they know. So, Jeff, who's your schmuck of the week?
The apparently inebriated Rudy Giuliani is my schmuck of the week. That line came from Liz Cheney. She delivered it very sublimely during the first hearing. Rudy did give me my favorite refrain of the week, though, when he was repeating "big, massive dump" in Michigan, and then that was repeated by Trump himself. And so, Rudy gets a bad shake for his drinking. He only drinks at night or during the day, but that's it. Rudy is my schmuck of the week.
Good
Excellent.
Right.
Well, Anne Farnell's really on top of this. Eastman clerked for Ludwig. And then I believe after that he clerked for Thomas. Yes. Oh, what a web we are weaving in real time here. Allan, your schmuck.
My schmuck of the week is Ryan Kelley. The guy yesterday was denied. The judge in D.C. denied him the right to carry a gun because he doesn't have security on his campaign. It's just a theme of these guys breaking the law and then feeling like they're victimized by the law. It's the same thing with to go to Chief Craig. He's screaming about he's the victim, even though he's Mr. Law and Order. It's all about the law, and he violated the law with his petitions. And yet they want exemptions for everything. And Ryan Kelley's like, oh my God, I can't carry a gun just because I committed a crime.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
Leave it to me, Allan, then to invoke some Yiddish and say that's chutzpah. We can't have a show without some Yiddish, and I know we went through the entire show without, apart from schmuck. Okay. Well, I'm glad that everyone has a schmuck of the week that's different. Mine is going to be Georgia Senate candidate Herschel Walker. He who had been, thank you, Nancy, who had been a player, actually a Heisman Trophy winner with the University of Georgia, played for the New Jersey Generals, which was owned by Donald Trump in the USFL. And then, of course, also a participant on The Apprentice, which is, of course, the show of misfit toys of Trump. But Herschel Walker, who criticized absentee fathers as being at the crux of the dilemmas and the challenges facing the African-American community, now has admitted in slow-moving time, not one, not two, but three, count them, three different secret children. 2 sons and a daughter, whom he is not publicly acknowledged yet. I mean, until now that his cover has been blown. Only the one son, Christian, who is sort of his sidekick as he's campaigning. The notoriously inarticulate Mr. Walker also seems to be a bit of a cover-up artist when it comes to his genealogy. So for being hypocritical and being, as we are approaching Father's Day this weekend, worst father on the planet, you're my schmuck of the week.
Let me ask you a question. Is it illegal in Georgia to give water to people waiting in line for a DNA test to find out if Herschel Walker is their father?
And my crack was going to be cover-up artist who hasn't figured out how to use a condom yet. So there we go.
There you go.
Well, if it was Mississippi, unfortunately, it looks like it might just simply be illegal there in another year, given what they've got in mind. Well, listen, thank you again for a very vibrant, more than PG-13 show today with the week that was. Thank you, Jeff Timmer, for joining us. Thank you, Mike Rataj. Thank you, Nancy Derringer, and Allan Lengel with the last word.
Drive home safely.
Thanks, everybody. Take care and have a great Father's Day weekend.
Okay, great.